Good morning. We are driving down to Sacramento. We're gonna link up with Slopes today. We've got some projects that we're gonna knock off. Today, we are installing the diesel heater. Huge deal. We're doing a different heater. So the industry standard for adventure vans over the last 5 years or so has been the ESPAR AS3 D2L diesel heater. It's a fantastic unit. People love it. The major qualm with that unit is it really only functions really well up into about, or it's designed to really function well up to about 9,000 feet. We hang out in the snow quite a bit, and the weak link in our setup has been our heater. So for the last couple of years, we've been running the Mr. Buddy heater, and it's cool. It's cool. It works. It just doesn't work great, and it's also not a really sustainable option. We will continue to roll with the Mr. Buddy heater in the rig, even with the diesel heater installed, just purely as a redundancy, because sometimes things break. But we're really excited to get this diesel heater in today because the heater that we got is a new one, and it's called the AS3 D2L heater. And we're super stoked on this one because it's engineered to work up to 13,200 feet. That's awesome. So even up in Colorado, in the Cascades, and into some of these other mountain ranges, even up in the Wasatch or whatever, most of the time your van isn't going to be higher than 13K. You know, I mean, like I think Pikes Peak, you can drive up to that, and it's a 14er. And from what I've been able to find so far, this is the highest rated heater in terms of elevation. Now, the part of the equation here that has made this project so tricky, when we got our van came optioned from Mercedes with the auxiliary battery under the passenger seat. That's been really awesome. We've actually loved having that there. All of our lights, everything interiorly from the adventure wagon kit are ran to that auxiliary battery. Now, we have a secondary power source, and we have a Goal Zero Yeti 1500X power station. It's okay. Our experience with the Goal Zero products hasn't been great. What makes this whole thing kind of tricky is because we have that auxiliary battery under the passenger seat, that's typically where your diesel heater will go. It fits in there perfectly. It's great. That system's not going to work for us. So when it comes down to installing this heater, trying to find a secondary location for this is there's not a lot on how to do it. Because vans are so different and they vary so greatly in like cabinet setups and boxes and galley configurations and everything like that, it's a pretty individual type thing. So if it's not going to fit under the passenger seat, then you have to get custom and figure out where it's going to work best in your build. For us, we don't have a permanent galley in our van. The whole theme of our van build was to be modular. That's why we have mule bags. We don't have hard cabinetry. That's why we have a modular galley, not a hardwood cabinet grade base galley that we're going to be building into. So for us, we have to figure out where we're actually going to put this heater unit and really think about the future regarding new cabinetry, maybe a new galley, things like that. So we're trying to do this in the most efficient and future-proofed way as possible. It's going to be going on the driver's side in front of the wheel well, and we have the Flatline Vanco wheel well cubbies. I think it's the XL size. So it's going to be going right in front of that. We've also relocated the Yeti from the aft of the van to midship, so like pretty much right in the middle. And we're going to be putting the heater and the Goal Zero in close proximity to each other, and then we'll probably be enclosing them in a box of some sort. But the other thing that's a little bit different for our setup, we're using a turret system. So if you're not familiar with a turret, the heater can mount two ways. One, you can just drill out the holes required for the intake, the exhaust, and the fuel line, and then just set it flat on whatever your floor surface is and bolt it in and call it good. Another layer of complexity for our build is that we have a 3/4 inch CNC'd subfloor under our lawn seal coin floor. So it's a pretty thick floor that we have going, and the ESPAR heater mount bolts they're pretty short. So we're using the turret system, and what it is it's a steel plate with a radius welded onto the bottom of it. The way it works is we drill out one big 5-inch hole, and then the heater mounts into that plate. When the heater is mounted onto the plate, it makes it simple and efficient to be able to change out any heaters in the future. So say this heater has an issue, all we have to do is unscrew everything and it'll pop right out of the turret. So there's pros and cons to it, but I think for us, because our subfloor is so thick, and we're putting it in such a unique location, that this makes the most sense for us to be able to future-proof any issues and get in front of problems before they arise. So that's kind of the overall gist of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be installing the turret, installing the heater, rigging everything up, lining up the exhaust lines on the correct side, positioning the intake lines on the correct side, and getting this awesome new heater fired up. We're super stoked to get this thing going because it makes such a huge difference in your van to have this heat source. Helps keep your batteries warm, helps keep all your interior components warm, keeps your water from freezing. And then also too, like when we're done shredding at the end of the day, we want to be able to come back and just jump into a toasty van and be able to hang out and not have to worry about propane or venting or any of those types of issues. We've just got clean, dry heat, sipping off 12-volt power and sipping off our diesel fuel tank. And you know, I'm not gonna probably get into a whole bunch of the nuts and bolts of like how diesel heaters work in this video. There's a million really good videos about explaining like the actual process of how the diesel engine works. So that's kind of the overall brief of what we're going to be working on today, and we'll try to do it in a way where it's really consistent and show you some of the issues that we've had a really hard time finding any context or guidance on how to get around or mitigate these challenges. So that's the plan, man. We are getting ready to start fitting the heater. Like I said earlier, we're doing this in a different way. The typical fashion is to install it under the base seat. However, for us, that doesn't work because of the battery issue we explained earlier. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be installing it behind the Yeti. So we've got this little cuddy area back here, and it's gonna be going right back in here. Maybe hard to see right now, but once we get it all fit up, everything like that, you'll be able to see it. So down here is where we're gonna install the heater. This area right here is perfect, and specifically what's underneath this portion of the van is actually the most important. We got tons of room to work down there. This is what we're looking at here. We went ahead, taped off the whole galley, so we're able to see where everything stands. So we're gonna mark out all 4 of these corners. We're gonna throw an X in the middle of it. The middle of the X marks the spot. We're gonna send a pilot hole through there, and we're gonna see where we end up on the other side. The heater is gonna be chilling right in here. The way it's set up right now, we've got about 1.5 inches on the fan side, which is about all you need. And then it's gonna leave us extra room for the plumbing that's gonna come out of it, and then we're going to plumb that into a cabinet that Slopes is getting ready to start throwing together. That's the plan. This is what we're doing. We put holes at each of the drill points, and then we are running lines to connect each one of those. In the middle of this X is the spot. That's where we're gonna send a pilot. This is the happy place for us right here. We'll send this pilot hole, and then we'll get on the bottom and we'll see where we're at. Then we can kind of figure it out from there. Cool. Looks pretty good.
Yep.
How do we look there?
Woo!
Close.
What do you think?
I think it'll just make it, dude. I think it's perfect. That's the center part. From the top side, it'll be 1/2 inch that way towards the rear, so it'll be perfect. This collar will be lined up probably right up against this right here, against there. I don't see any problem with where it's at, honestly. Now if you want to be on the safe side, move it over to here and it'll be 0 issues. So move it that way, 1/2 inch.
Oh, towards the galley?
Yep. And there'll be 0% issues. So let's go on the top side and I'll show you what I'm seeing. This is the mirror image of down there.
Yeah.
So we're close. Maybe a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch.
Let's just take it more to the right and be safe.
So it'll be like this. So if we go this way,
yeah,
then this is almost lined up with that,
yeah,
and we're totally squared.
For sure.
And then we have this much room on this side.
Yep.
Because this is all play.
And then what? That's probably about 3/4 inch, right, to accommodate the plywood.
Yeah, that stuff's I think 5/8. So let's just move it straight over.
Yeah.
1/2 inch.
Just send it
from there to there.
Yeah.
Nothing like just sending fucking renegade holes through.
You got that paint pen?
A $100,000 van.
1/2 inch, 1 inch.
Right. Look on.
Okay. Okay. You're gonna want to go high speed.
That's the one. All right there.
Yep.
All right. This is just as scary as when we did the fan. Remember?
Oh yeah. So that's subfloor. Insulation.
We weren't close to any frame components. Right? So we should be totally fine. I've heard that this just can take a minute too, of just like chewing through this thing.
Oh, yeah, dude, it's fucking perfect.
Is it?
Fucking
yes.
couldn't be any better.
Yes, that's what I want to hear, my boy. All right, you good? Stand by. All right, UG. Yeah. Woo! This thing's smoking. Is that it?
Almost.
This thing feels like it's gonna catch on fire.
Yep, you're through.
Through? What do you reckon?
Perfect.
Is it clearing?
Oh yeah.
It is?
That's clean. It's smoking though still.
Yeah. Well, that was hot. That took a lot to get through that.
Yeah. Yeah. I see.
Can you see it?
Yeah. It's this one right here. Okay, you can go on. That's what we need to take out right there.
Yeah. And it's just a little bit, huh?
So go ahead and set it again. And we also need to fit the hose around it.
Here's the status of things. The silly geese, when they sent it to me, sent us the kit, they did not send it with the actual install instructions. So luckily, we've watched enough videos on how to put this thing together, but it is definitely a whole bunch of trying, well, does this fit or does this not fit? Trying to make these things happen. The other thing, we got this turret off of Amazon. It's supposedly a ESPAR component. However, for the AS3 D2L, the fuel intake port does not fit. So, I don't know if you can really see it, but had to get crafty with it with the jigsaw. Cut out a little bit of extra space here, to make this thing fit. But now, it seems that this is working perfectly. up, guys? Good morning. This is day 2 on the diesel heater install. Our kit didn't come with any instructions, so we're kind of getting it figured out, piecemealing it together. Seen a bunch of this stuff, so it's pretty straightforward on how it goes together. Yeah, so today we're finishing wiring up the fuel pump, laying all the line, getting the wiring harness done, and kind of then installing the controller and buttoning everything up. Let's do a quick little hot lap and I'll show you everything that we've gotten done up until now. So last night we ended up throwing the hole through. We used a 5-inch hole saw. That's accommodating the turret that we have mounted on here. This is what we have going on. So we've got the 60mm turret. I've already pre-wired the exhaust and the intake, and we're putting it back here in this back location that is just in front of our Flatline Vanco box. We cut the hole, and now I'm getting ready to climb under. I'm going to use some Rust-Oleum, rust prevent the bottom of it. Then we're going to let that dry. We already test fit everything and it fits great. Once that paint is dry, I'm going to come back through with some sealant and I'm going to seal the bottom of the turret, and we're going to get that set in. Next, we're going to get into running all the rest of the lines. So we're going to run the fuel pump, we're going to run the fuel lines, and I'm going to pop the seat off, and we're going to expose all of this stuff, and we're going to start figuring out where we're going to run our power cables, the controller cable, everything like that, and get that dialed in. This is what we're using, Rust-Oleum, under the van, spraying up. We're going just in front of the back wheel, straight up. All right. Now, spray it. The other side. That's what we got going on. Spraying the entire inside. I went all the way up into the wood as well. Just to keep everything tight, protected. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Now we'll let that dry. We're here on the inside of the van. I'm getting ready to pop the seat off. We're also going to remove some panels. And the best way to ensure that we don't get any error codes when we go to put everything back together is we're going to come here under the steering column. And I'm on a VS30, so it's a 2021 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter Cargo. There's a little panel right here, and we're going to remove this. See it come out. Out you go. Come on. As you can see, 2 hands are required. Why can't you get out? Dude. What? Oh, give me this kind of day. Dude. Oh my God. What is happening here? Get out. All right, so now it's gonna be that kind of a day. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna reach back in here. I don't know if you can see it, but we're just going to remove the plug. You can see that it's just this little plug right here. It's this guy, you might not be able to see it. That little red button, you push that in and then it slides off the post. So now we've killed power to the entire van. I think there's an extra step that you can do. You can come down here into this guy, and supposedly we're gonna pull one of these. I believe it's the 32 fuse. We're not gonna pull it. I've done it this way before, haven't gotten any codes, so fingers crossed it's gonna be the same. This is everything that we're gonna do today. We got wiring harness, controller, exhaust, fuses, hangers, fuel line, additional sheathing that we got from Home Depot. So it's this stuff. This is going to cover this. Fuel pump assembly, all the fixtures. Yeah, and we should be good to go off of this here. So I don't know, fingers crossed. It seems like our box might be a little light on parts, and unfortunately it didn't also come with any instructions. So trying to figure this out is pretty challenging, and it's something that you want to do right. So we'll see how it goes. Now we're gonna pop the seat, and it's a 10 mil. We're going to just use the power ratchet, pop these all off. We should be good to go. But first, we're going to unplug all our connections here. All right, light comes out. Yellow, you come out. I think that's it. So it's just this one harness. Yeah, it's just that one harness that comes through. So what we'll do is we'll push you guys through. Pull these guys through. Now we got all 4 seat bolts out, and what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna try to get away with doing this just with taking the driver's seat off. Now be careful when you're getting these things out, because they're pretty freaking heavy. Uh-oh. Oh, we're still hooked up on something. Now we can get this off. There we go. Okay, so now, there we go. It's been a while since I've been in here. Move this guy out of the way, and we're gonna start exploring what our options are. This is what it looks like in here. This is our Blue Seas fuse box, which is running to our auxiliary battery under that side. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to see if we can get this to hook up on here. I don't know how many more ports I have on this fuse box. I'm hoping that it's enough. We're stoked. After getting in here, this is the Blue Seas fuse block. That is for our auxiliary battery, which is powering all of the Adventure Wagon components. We've got one pin left on here, so hopefully we're going to be able to run it directly to this, the wire up the B pillar, and then mount the controller up there. And just as we record this, we've got these guys blowing tight. We're running electrical. This has been really challenging. So when you get your AS3 D2L heater kit, our kit came with no instructions, and it's not readily apparent what you're supposed to do. Apparently, it comes with a CD because everybody has CD-ROMs. Now, when you look at this, you're just like, oh, it's a CD. Obviously, we're not going to use this. There's really no other documentation besides little pamphlets for the individual components. But technically, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to look. The CD is completely in German. It doesn't say anything about there being, it just says technical descriptions, but there's a QR code right there. You're apparently supposed to use that QR code to access the instructions. Now, to make it even more user-friendly, you're prompted to create an account and register your product. So the instructions are paywalled or gated behind a registration form. Not awesome. So when it comes to getting into that, after you've created the account and you've been denied because the system hasn't updated, and then finally once you're able to make it in and access the documentation, it's extensive and it is very, very dry. So really what you're looking at, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on the camera, but when you get into these, it's all schematics, and it's like 30 pages. It's like 30 pages of all like these schematics, but more importantly, it's all stuff like this, right? So it's significant, and you have to read all of this stuff. Now, we've been watching a few other guys do it, right? We watched Vanland do it. We watched Freedom Van Gogh do one. We watched 7-0 Savage do one. 7-0's is probably the best one out of everybody's. However, his kit was different than ours. So what we were having a really hard time understanding, this is how we have everything laid out right now. So this is the whole wiring harness, right? So this is the master plug. This is going to plug into the heater. It splits into 3 main lines. This one goes to the Easy Start Pro control unit and thermostat. This one is going to be the main power for the unit itself. This third one is going to be all fuel pump. Now, 7-0 Savage's kit came with this little connector already pre-wired. Ours did not. So the really tough thing about trying to figure out how to do this was figuring out what side of the inputs this goes into the block. Now, Slopes was a boss and was able to digest that schematic wiring diagram and figured out that they're color coded, so it's brown and gray, so not universal hot and ground colors. But more importantly, after reading the schematic, he was able to see that very, very super faintly and tiny is it engraved on here, number 1 and number 2 ports. Now, number 1, which one was number 1?
Brown, which is the...
which is ground, right?
Ground, yeah.
Yeah, so brown, number 1, is ground, and gray, number 2, which is hot. So after an hour of trying to figure out which one was which, we now have that set up, and now I think that we should be in a place where this is going to start going a lot smoother. But understand that when you open up your kit, dude, results may vary. You might get one that's like completely dialed and good to go, or you might get one where you have to put all this stuff together yourself. It's not complicated. It's just very difficult to find the accurate information, and you have to sift through a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
To get it figured out. So pretty heavy lift on this side of things. But we're gonna get this stuff ran up, and yeah, we'll do a full recap of how everything is playing out, like when we get it all put together.
You can fucking run it.
What do you have to say about this?
If I knew what I was doing, it'd be a lot easier. Yeah.
That makes 2 of us. So we're making progress here. This is the current state of affairs. Our van, we have an Adventure Wagon RUV kit. We also have a auxiliary battery under the passenger seat directly from Mercedes-Benz. When we did our Adventure Wagon build, the way that they were telling us to do the install then, this was 2 years ago, was to install the Blue Seas fuse box, which we kind of have disassembled right now, but it's right there. It's right here. This is where they were telling us to put it. We've got that there, and we are going to be running the 12-volt heater off of that auxiliary battery. So the auxiliary battery connections come from under the seat. They run through the wiring chase, through here, and all terminate right here. So what we're going to do for the heater is we have the heater positioned back there. I'm running the wires along the floorboard here, because otherwise, if we go through the bays, we have to go through the bays all the way up here, and then down through the B pillar to get to here. So we're going to try to keep that shorter. We're going to run it through there in the floor, kind of pulled back under the floor a little bit, directly through here under the seat bottom, into the fuse block. Underneath here, all this mess, you can kind of see, is where we have the access port via the little boot on the bottom. We're running the fuel pump power down through there and then towards the back. And now what we're going to do is we're going to crimp these back, we're going to put on the ring terminals, and we are going to put them directly onto the Blue Seas fuse box. The heater kit comes with what we found to be a redundant fuse. Since we're already hooking it up to a fuse block, we don't need to put an individual fuse in line with that. If we were running it directly to the battery, that's when we would want to put an additional fuse block that comes with the kit in line, so that in case we did blow a fuse, it would make it easier to switch. We're just going to run it to this fuse block and not put the additional 25 amp fuse in line. So that's the plan for right now. So we'll see how it all comes together. We're getting there. We got it buttoned up in the seat base. This is how it looks. And this is, so your van may not look like this. Our van is completely optioned. So we've got every power option that you could want in these seats and for like driving assist and everything like that. So we've got a whole bunch of extra gear in here. Sometimes when you pull the seats off, it can be really tidy in here, like lots of space to work, lots of space to maneuver. We don't have that luxury. So what we did is we ran the main power to our Blue Seas fuse block right back in here, which is powering the entire adventure wagon setup. Underneath this entire module, there's a boot. It's like a rubber boot, and you cut that zip tie on there, and then you're able to send your wires through the seat base, down through the hole, and then run it back to plug it into the fuel pump. So as of now, we're wired up here, we flipped the breaker, we've got power back on in here, and we're looking pretty good. So I think now it's just going to be a matter of like hooking up the rest of this stuff. That from here on out, it's plug and play. So the connectors are done. We stripped the wires back for the main power, threw on ring connectors, and then heat shrink on top of those. Those are hooked up to a 20 amp fuse in the fuse block, and that should cover it. Click. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
So we're on, we got power.
AC, I know.
There's a super important step that if you don't install this fuse right here, your entire system's not going to work. So we thought that we didn't need to do it. We thought it was redundant. We were going to run it to this fuse block, and we got it all wired up, heat shrinked everything, and then we went to fire it up and nothing. Found out you do have to do this, nor does it really stay anywhere in the instructions, quote unquote instructions. So, but now we installed this, and now we got power. Boom, dude. That's it. Woo! Yeah. Now,
Go to the on. 69.
let's do it for an hour because it's probably going to need to prime itself.
On.
On.
Okay.
Okay. Woo! All right, guys, check this out. So, I want to just give you a finished look on how we did all this. Here we are. We're a couple weeks later. The heater's been working awesome. It's been flawless. So after we got through a couple of the initial hurdles, everything's been working great. One of those hurdles being, as you saw earlier in the video, not putting in that that secondary fuse box for the 25 amp fuse. That is super important. Without doing that, the entire unit's not going to work. we ended up having a problem with it on the way home. One of the very, very small, I think the 14 or 16 gauge control wires ended up pulling out of the connector. Now, it comes with these Euro connectors. I forget the actual name of them. I'm not a big fan, honestly. It's overly complicated. It didn't work that great. I mean, it probably works fine, but as I said, one of those wires pulled out and there was no way to get it back in. Once those connectors are in, they're in. So actually what I did is I just opted to scrub that altogether. I ran to O'Reilly's and I just grabbed a really small, cheap little fuse block. It was like, I don't know, it was like $8. I replaced the Euro connectors for the Spade connectors. Here's the thing, guys, is the Euro stuff's cool, right? But at the end of the day, like if you're living in America, it's way easier to get stuff that we already have available to us here. So that's why I opted for the Spade connectors. And they're put away under the seat, so I'm not going to take the seat off to show you, but it's really, really simple stuff. So I just replaced the Euro one that came in the kit with a standard American one with Spade connectors, dielectric grease, and heat shrink on top of the connectors. And it's been great. But remember that 25 amp fuse, well, it's two fuses. It's a 20 and it's a 5. And that 5 amp fuse is what runs the controller. Without that, it's not going to work at all. Your entire unit's not going to get power. So like I said in the video earlier, we thought it was redundant. It's not. It's super important. But after we got that all figured out, we got the controller mounted here. We're loving this position. It's working really, really well. And then the way that we finished it up was we ended up using some leftover material. This is the box that Slopes built when we were down there a couple weeks ago. I ended up finishing it in the lawn coin. I had some of this lawn coin left over from when we did our floor. And then I utilized a piece of the hex ply that was left over from our adventure wagon build. So luckily I was able to use this, rip it down, cut it up, make it fit. And then we were able to position the outlet down here. This works really well. So this outlet is actually directly in line with the heater. So it's right behind it. It's pretty tight. There's not a lot of room, but that's kind of the way that we wanted it. We made sure to accommodate for the tolerances. We left 1.5 inches, like maybe 1.75 inches on the fan side, directly where it butts up to the wall. So it's got plenty of ventilation. But the cool thing about having this here that we're finding that we really like is we can position this however we want. Now, also having the bed right here, sometimes like when it gets really cold, your mattress can get super firm. So having this here, we're able to direct our heat wherever we want it. And that's proving to be really, really awesome. The Yeti's not sliding around. It's in a good spot. We're really liking having this here. It was originally in the very back of the van. So moving it up here has been really beneficial for a couple reasons. One, we can actually see it. Two, everything's much more manageable to get to. And so, yeah, it's much more user-friendly in this position. So far, everything's working really well. I'm going to now jump under the van. I'm going to show you how we lined out the power supply, the fuel line, and the exhaust. All right, guys, here we are under the van. Front is that way. Drive shaft, battery. Now, you heard me talking about the access boot. That's this right here. All right, so what you do is you cut the zip tie. This boot opens up and you're able to run the power supply cable to the back or wherever you need to be running power to. So this is kind of the way that everything's looking down here. One notable difference in our kit from some of the other kits is ours, this is a 2021, it came with a quick detach clip on here, but the kit came with just this tube, right? So, or this fitting, wide diameter, small diameter here, 2 clamps. So there's no clip, right? The way that we have this running is we've got our very first fuel line fitting here, And then we were able to run it all the way up. All the way up. We tried to use existing holes in all the places that we could. This is the power supply cable. We went up through the frame holes, just like this. We used the sheathing on the fuel line. Zip tied power, put the sheathing all the way through any place that we utilized the stock hole so that we're able to see what we've got going on. The other nice thing about leaving little windows here too is it gives us the opportunity to diagnose if there's any fuel issues. You're able to see that we also have the inline fuel filter here. We decided to put it here for two reasons. One, it's kind of in the middle of the setup here. The reason why we wanted to do that was because this will tell us if there's a problem. One, we'll be able to see if it's getting fuel or not getting fuel. If it's not getting fuel, then it could indicate that there's a problem upstream. If it is getting fuel, yet we don't have ignition of the heater in the back, it could be something downstream from the fuel filter. So this is kind of put in the middle so that we're able to try to diagnose quickly if there are issues. Now, moving down the line, we've got everything ran. Again, utilizing stock holes where we can. We wanted to try to minimize putting in any extra holes into the van as much as possible. Now it's moving into the fuel pump. So we've got this set at 30 degrees. It's exactly how it's supposed to be. So you've got the fittings here, power supply with power labeled, so we're able to diagnose again, you know, that problem that we had earlier, trying to figure out what side power goes into the connectors. Fuel fitting coming out of here, again, more sheathing, and then directly up into the bottom of the turret. So the way that this is set up here, we siliconed the entire thing with high temp silicone, so to create that gasket. And then we've got our exhaust, we've got our intake running opposite directions, and then our fuel line is popping up into there. So it's been a couple weeks. This is the first time I've been down here since we installed this, and everything looks exactly like it's supposed to be. All right, so now let's take a look at the exhaust side. So as we look, that's how it looks all the way down. Super nice, neat, tidy, not interfering with anything. Now as we look at the exhaust, I've got the exhaust that terminates there. It runs straight down, and then we've got it mounted all the way down, nice, neat, and tidy, and then terminating here. That's the front wheel of the driver's side. And then it just pops out here, which is really nice having it in this location because we don't have any fumes that are coming into the sliding door when we're just chilling, hanging out, anything like that. So we've got the muffler mounted right here, just right into the gunnel of the van. And it's working really well. No rattles, no nothing. I do have to say, this fuel pump is rad, super quiet. You know, a lot of people complain about hearing the fuel pump ticking. We don't hear really anything from this. We might hear a couple seconds of it ticking, like right up front as it's like self-priming or getting itself ready, and then after the heater ignites, we don't hear a single thing. So we just used the bracket that came in. These are self-tapping screws. Yeah, we're really stoked. Everything has worked really well. Everything still seems to be completely in place. This is good. Yeah, all the fittings are nice and tight, no leaks, no issues. So that's pretty much how we're running it. Good to go. Yeah. All right, guys, there you have it. That's the install of the AS3 D2L heater from ESPAR. This project is pretty complicated overall. It definitely takes effort. It definitely is better to do this with, one, either somebody who's done it before, or two, just somebody who's handy. Huge shout out to my brother Slopes for giving me a hand with this. It would have been really challenging for me to do it without him. But the other part of this too is, you know, there's not a lot of content out there on where to put this heater if it's not living under the passenger seat. So That's why we wanted to put this one specifically together for you, so that you're able to see what the process looks like, what our thinking was, why we chose to go in this location as opposed to somewhere else, or the stock standard way of putting it under the passenger seat. Overall, we're really excited about the location of this heater. Like I showed you, the ability to position the heat stream in different directions, but also too, accessibility is super huge. I don't have to pop a seat off if anything goes wrong. Using the turret system is going to be really beneficial. It's nice and neat and tidy. All the holes are outside the van. Everything's very organized. You saw how we ran the exhaust. You saw how we ran the fuel lines utilizing existing holes where possible. So yeah, if you guys have any other specific questions on like tactical, like how-tos about how we got around certain components of this, feel free to hit me up. I'll answer any of the questions, drop them in the comments, or you can get us on the gram at seeker.overland. And I'm happy to help with anything that you guys may need. So give me a shout, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.